Good Monday morning. I'm digging in dirt today. It's one of my favorite things. The first hints of fall have come. Fall is not my favorite. Spring is my favorite. But at least in fall you get pretty mums. And just so you know, if you're about to go buy mums, I just watched this lady recently and she said this is not what I'm going to talk about. But she said try to buy a mum that has as few blooms as possible, because then as it can get established in the soil, it's better for it. So that's free. But it had me thinking about soil. I love Miracle-Gro. I think just because it says miracle, I love that word. And right now I have some people in my life in need of big ones, so we're using Miracle-Gro today. But I think my question for us to ponder on this Monday morning, kind of like last week when I asked the question, where are you lighting a fire? My question today is, how is your soil? How is your soil? How's your seed doing in your soil? Is it producing a crop? You know, Jesus gave his disciples a parable of sower and seed. And he talked about seed that was sown and it just fell along the path and immediately the birds came and took it away. And he compared that to people who hear the message of the gospel. And maybe it feels too complex, or they're just not sure, and immediately the enemy comes and snatches the seed. Then there's the one that is thrown on the path, and it kind of goes into the soil, but immediately it's kind of ripped up. And he compares that to people who receive the gospel, but then the moment the first ounce of persecution comes and they meet the friend in the hallway at work that says, "You did what? Jesus, you really believe that's true? Are you crazy? Are you crazy? Do you really believe a man was crucified to take the sins of the world, was buried, and on the third day he rose again, and he was the Son of God? Do you really believe that absurd message?" And they're like, "Maybe I don't. I don't think I do." And so immediately the seed is plucked from their soil. But for most of us, it's in the third place that the seed dies. The seed goes in, takes root, but it says all of a sudden the cares of life, the pains and trials of the world, and then the Amplified Bible uses the word, and the distractions of this begin to choke out the seed. If I were a budding woman, and I'm not, didn't work out well, but if I were, I would say that's where most of us land. Most of us live in the soil of our distractions. In fact, I would definitely say in America, that would probably be the number one thing that steals our seed. Distracted by, like I talked about last week, our pleasure, our schedule, our striving, our producing, our entertainment. And so at the end of this life, which, if we're aware in this season, there's a commonality of message, and that is things are amping up, changing drastically, and we need to be looking up, because we are in the middle of some escalating birth pains. And we know by scripture that when the birth pains increase, it is very close to the promise of the return of Jesus Christ. And when that happens, whether tomorrow or 30 years from now or 50 years from now, whenever that happens, believers will stand before the Lord, and we will give an account of what happened with our seed. What did our seed produce? Because The fourth soil, Jesus said, was good soil. And he said when the seed was deposited in it, it produced a harvest, some 30, some 60, some 100. So how is your seed? And how is your soil? Will you and I be able to stand before the Lord and show him what our soil was able to produce? You can't have good soil unless you tend it. I've learned that the hard way, because we live in Georgia and this stuff is solid red clay. My hydrangeas are so confused. They don't know if they're pink or purple or magenta. So you have to add and care and tend for the soil. So how are you tending the soil of your heart? What are you putting in it? Are you putting in it things you shouldn't be watching or reading? Or are we putting in it that quality time with the Lord and his presence and his word with his people? This mom is not going to grow if all I do is put it back in the pot I got it in at Home Depot and sit it out here and say, good luck, babe. This is going to produce all of these buds and more as I prune it and deadhead it, and as I tend it and care for it and put really good fertilizer in the soil. That is the same for our own hearts and lives. So, from this amateur gardener on this Monday morning, we will give an account for what our soil has produced. So it's very important that we're paying attention and caring and tending and fertilizing our soil with things of eternal value. So I'm not going to leave her in this little cheap Home Depot container. I'm going to put her in here. I'm going to watch her grow.